And of course, what I want to do, and I apologize for people who are watching this that don't have ScreenFlow running. Okay, we're back. It's COMP2007. That's Enterprise Computing in the summer 2016 semester. Please watch those videos, not the ones that say something else, because there's going to be videos for every year, every time we do this kind of stuff. It's lesson 2, week 2, part 1 of our broadcast. And last week, we talked about a couple of things. We kind of got an intro into your ASP.NET web forms applications. This week, I want to talk about your assignment number 1 first. I want to start with that one. So it's up on Blackboard. By the way, it's not like it's going to surprise you or anything what I did. I want you to rebuild your portfolio site with ASP.NET. All right, so web forms. So if you've already got a portfolio site from COMP2068, which you would have, if you did COMP2068 with me, then you should be able to do a portfolio. Now, there are some people in the class that are new, and they've never done COMP2068. Put up your hand if you've never done COMP2068 Advanced Web Programming. So you didn't do that, and you guys, these are people in the back. You probably don't have a portfolio, right? But the rest of us have it. Everyone has a portfolio site. So let's take a look at the assignment number 1. So what I want you to do is take your portfolio, the content from your portfolio site, right? By the way, for the people that are just coming in, Alex and our gentleman in the back there, hello. Hi. Hi there. Quiz. This is the password, right? So that's it's started now, please. Okay, while I'm talking, do this. Okay, Alex, thanks. So if you've never done a portfolio site before, this is a great opportunity for you to kick one off. So for the people who've never done it before, you need to create a 5-page site, that kind of stuff, with, for example, your home page, an About Me page, a projects page, a services page, and a contact me page. Now, for everyone else should have this, right? And most people have it, because some people didn't submit it in COMP2068. You may not have it, but if you've submitted it, and if you had it before, all I want you to do is take your content that you had from your previous course and respin it, right? Pour your content into ASP.NET web forms. Why? Not because I want you to say to the interviewers, hey, guess what? I've got an ASP.NET web forms, portfolio site, but rather because I want you to learn. It's going to get your hands wet and feet wet with ASP.NET web forms, and it's something that you already know. You've already done this, so now this is going to help you learn and remember what to do with ASP.NET web forms. So it's only worth 5% of your final grade. That's why it's not marked very, very highly. Only because if I was doing this for the first time, it'd probably be like worth 15%, right? And if you're doing it for the first time, right, people who have never done COMP2068 before, it's going to be tough for 5%, right? Because you don't have anything. So we'll talk about some strategies. For those people who've never done a portfolio site, please see me during break, and I'll talk about some requirements that I'm looking for from you, right? A little different than everybody else. But if you've already done it, all I want you to do is take that content. Don't recreate the wheel here. I don't want you to make anything new. Now, if you want to, you can refine what you have. You can change what you have, but it's got to be your own, okay? So when we're looking at it, it's the same breakdown, but notice that it says you're going to be using an ASP.NET Web Forms application. That's what you're going to make. You're going to be using 2 master pages in today's class. We're going to be talking about master pages and content pages. Those are the 2 things primarily I want to focus on in this class. I'd like to be able to get the server controls too. That would be nice. Like earlier today, it just didn't happen, right? Because we moved around and there's a bit of a kerfuffle, right? But that's the main focus, and we're going to use 2 of them. Even though we don't need 2, I'm asking you for 2 master pages. 1 for every other page other than the content of the contact page, and the last one for a contact page, just to do another one so you can see how it is to carry 2 master pages in an application. Not because it's necessarily a practical use. Typically, we don't do that. But you can have as many master pages in your site as you'd like, right? And master pages are just templates, layout templates for your website. Okay, so I want you to think about this. How would you, we're gonna add to this as we go forward. There's going to be another project. Remember we talked about the syllabus last day. There's going to be a project that's going to come up, not 2 weeks from now, but 2 weeks after that. It's going to be a project that's going to be due, right? So This one is due June 1st on Wednesday at midnight. Okay, I want you to think of it that way. So it's not Even though we meet Thursdays, one thing I've learned from Rich, right? Rich being my mentor and the kind of the course leader in this one, right? He does it on Wednesdays too, and the reason why is because that way you come to class and you're focused on class. You're not at home doing your assignment. Let's do the same day, right? So it's due Wednesday. It's not due Thursday. So if you hand it in on Thursday during class, it's late. 20% for the first day, all right? So please, it's due Wednesday, not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after, June 1st, okay? Next week, again, is a short week. We've got, what is it, May 2-4 this weekend, right? So you're gonna have a long weekend. No classes Monday. So it's not due next week, but the week after. After that, when it's due, so around June 2nd, when we get together on Thursday of June 2nd, I'm gonna give you your project that I want you to pair program with somebody else, one other person, right? So you and one other person get together, if you can, pair program something that's gonna be due a few weeks out. It's gonna be a bigger, larger application. Rich had built it in the previous iteration of this course. We're gonna spin it a little bit differently, add a couple of other requirements, but more or less there's gonna be something that's gonna really test out your knowledge of ASP.NET Web Forms, data, all the other stuff. So you really need to do this one first, ASP.NET Web Forms, like this, like kind of 101, making your portfolio site, just spinning content with ASP.NET Web Forms, so you can get your feet wet and get going on this whole build. If you've worked with me or Rich before, then you've seen this kind of output before. You know that each line tells you where your marks are going to go, and at the end you can see that there's a bit of a rubric that's also mirrored up on Blackboard. So Blackboard, you have a little bit of a rubric. So when you do your marking, you're going to see that your marks are going to come in. You can see how many marks you get in each section. It's going to make it nicer for you, better feedback, and easier for me to mark, right? So that's what's happening. So I'm looking for, at the end, the output, submitting your work to Blackboard. I need your zip file. Please don't give me RAR files. All right? I don't want RAR files. RAR files sometimes can act really, really weird, all right? So zip, .zip, .7zip, whatever, as a zip file. I want to link to your Github repository, right? And it has to be the Github repository that actually is linked to Azure. Sometimes I get Github repositories that are just like, there's no link. They're not even the right repository, right? You'll lose marks for these things. And also a live link to your portfolio site on Azure. It can't be hosted at the school site. It can't be hosted on Heroku or anywhere else. It has to be hosted on Azure for this one. Okay, so if you don't have your Azure working, right, you need to get that going, because we're going to be doing Azure through the entire course. Is there anyone still that doesn't have Azure working? I'm telling you, put up your hand now. We got Rich. He can probably step you in the right direction while he's here as we're going through class, right? That's good. If that means everybody here, I should be able to have Azure working. You have a problem with Azure? Oh, now you're putting your hand up? Okay. Huh? Okay, so maybe you can talk with Rich. Maybe he can direct you on what to do. It's not a simple process. It doesn't happen automatically. It takes time. So you may need a little bit more time. Just a reminder, even though I'm talking about assignment 1, lab 1 for this course is due tonight at midnight. Okay, so if it says another night for some whatever reason, it's due tonight. Remember, it was assigned last week, and all you have to do is put 2 links: your GitHub link and your live link for Azure for a little lab that you made, a Hello World app we talked about last week. Right, that's due tonight. If you haven't submitted yet, please submit. Right, it's a stupid loss of 2%. Right, if you don't submit your lab. Okay, it's silly. Right, so please do that. I'll be marking them tomorrow. Okay, so I've already marked some of them. If you noticed from last week on Friday, I marked whoever submitted, I marked, right? So there's going to be some other people who didn't submit, who are going to mark tomorrow, right? Last day to submit your lab 2 with almost 0 marks, and we're talking about, because you're going to lose 20%, and pretty rapidly it's going to be worth not much, right? You might give you some marks or whatever, is Monday. I always close it off a couple days later. It's almost going to be worth nothing, but it's better than 0, right? So please submit something, all right? Worst case scenario, if you don't know what you're doing, by Monday. Okay. Going back to this one, though, I've kind of strayed off topic a little bit. Remember that there's 3 parts to this primarily. One is the content. I want your contact page. I want your About Me page. I want your products page. All those pages that are going to be driven from your master pages. We're going to talk about master pages today. I also want you to build a Navbar to use throughout your entire website. So it's required. Okay. Some of you have built portfolios in the past with no Navbar, right? I'm asking you to build one with a Navbar this time. Okay. So I'm being very specific. And the reason for this is it's going to help you with your other app, your project that you're going to be building a couple weeks out from now. You're going to start building this other app, right? So I need you to do this so that you're ready to do the next piece, the next app. Part 2 is your structure. I want you to structure it with assets, your content, and your scripts folders. Okay, we did the same thing in COMP2006 in advanced web programming. This is the same structure, so it should be familiar to you, nothing new. For people who've never done COMP2006, it might be new. That's okay. But there's only there's three main folders I'm going to be looking for in your structure, and those are the three. Make sure that your HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and all this stuff is separated into the right structure. Internal documentation, I'm going to be starting with a different way of doing internal documentation this semester. We're going to be talking about a way of commenting, which is, I'm going to be using something called UIDoc, right? UIDoc, actually. So it's here, UIDoc. And you're going to ask me, well, Tom, why, after you see it, right? Here's the UIDoc. If I look at UIDoc syntax reference, it's a syntax reference for comments. Okay, so I want all your comments to look like this, right? Now, why? Because if ever I want to spin out my application into an API, right? There are automatic API documentation generators out there that look for these comments. By the way, this is the same thing we use in Java, JavaDoc. We also do it in JavaScript. So if you're a person who's going to do mean stack applications, we use this methodology primarily. And what it also does for TypeScript people, right, and we've touched on TypeScript a little bit, is it gives you code hinting with all the stuff that you put inside your comments, right? So whenever I type in a class or something like that in TypeScript or in JavaScript or in C#, it gives you code hinting for this based on the comments that I put in here. So it's not just a commenting style, but there's a whole reason for doing it. Also, when we get into MVC, it's going to help us when it comes to doing things like testing and gathering requirements for our unit testing, which I'm going to handle in the second half of this course. So please start it now. So when we do internal documentation, I want to use this best practice. We're going to start it today when we create our application. Okay? So that's internal documentation. And if you remember, it says a comment header with your name and all that stuff. That's not changing. Section headers for your HTML structure, CSS style sections, C# files, all those things should have comment headers if you're making something, and it should be in that UIDoc format that I just showed you. So I'm being very specific. Before I've just said, put some comments. And that was enough when we did COMP2006 advanced web programming. It's not enough now. Now you have to do it in a specific way. I'm going to be looking for it in a specific way. If I don't see it, you won't get your internal documentation marks. Okay? It's going to help you in the long run. And again, of course, share your files in GitHub and Azure. So those are the 8 marks. I'm always going to get you to share your files in GitHub and Azure. We do a midterm test. GitHub and Azure, always going to be there. So please don't run away from it. And I would start off with this. If I give you a practical test to do in class, get your GitHub and Azure going. That's 8 marks out of whatever it's going to be whenever you do your practical example. Okay, and of course, I'm going to give you some bonus marks. If you create a working contact form, right, using some ASP.NET, I'll give you some bonus marks. It's going to be some challenge to do it, right? But it's a lot easier with ASP.NET than you think, right? Because with Node, when we tried to do it with Node in COMP2006, we had to actually have a way of sending email. With ASP.NET, it's a lot easier, okay? So, and there's some packages that work with Azure we talked about last semester called SendGrid and other packages that allow you to send email right through Microsoft Azure. So it's a little bit difficult to do. I know there's going to be some people that want to challenge, that's going to challenge, but I'll give you 4 extra marks out of 28 for doing this kind of thing, if you're someone who wants to challenge themselves. Any questions around assignment number 1? It's really just a revamp. It's like your portfolio site revisited. We're coming back to it again, but you're just taking your content and respinning it so it works with ASP.NET, web forms, so that you can understand how they work. That's all we're doing. It's a very simple example, 5% of your final grade, and it's due a couple weeks out, which means a lot of time for you to get it done. I know what's going to happen. Some of you are going to wait till the final week, right? You might even wait till the day of. Please don't do that. It's more complicated than you think to make all the little pieces work properly. We're going to talk about some of these complications today, a little bit next week, and probably the week after until this is done. Okay? So no questions? Everyone's clear on assignment number 1? Okay, good. For the people who came in, has everyone done did you finish your quiz? Yeah. Anyone else still working on the quiz? Because there's a quiz you have to do. Did you do your quiz yet? That's your password for the quiz. It's under quizzes. Please do that now. All right? And I'm wondering if it's still active, because it may not be active right now. Okay, let's check it out. I'm sorry about that. Just going to make the quiz active here. Is it still active? It wasn't active? Okay, I'll fix it. Sorry, just we had a bit of a mess in terms of moving around today, and that's why it is what it is. Typically, that won't happen again. That won't happen again. We don't normally move in the middle of our semester. That's typically not what happens. So let's just move this instead of 1:30, we'll move it to 2. Give you some more time. Okay, so now it should be available to you to finish off. Whoever hasn't had a chance to do it, please do it now, so we can take it up during the break. Okay. Okay, so that's part 1. So really, we talked about assignment number 1. We're going to be looking at this PowerPoint presentation. You have it in PDF format up on Blackboard, and you're going to see it in your week 2 content area, right? So we're going to talk about this. And like we talked about before, it's going to be covering a couple things, server controls and master pages. But I'm going to start with master pages first, because that, to me, is the most important piece. Not because server controls are important, because we've done a few server controls examples last week, and you can kind of intuit from then how to use some of them. And if you even read this thing and use this as a reference card, you can probably get through, even if I didn't explain it, right? I'm going to explain them. And we're going to kind of add more server controls as we get into more and more ASP.NET Web Forms, right? But I want you to start with master pages. So let's do that. I want you to kick off Visual Studio 2013 or 2015. And we're going to do 2 examples. One where we use the built-in web form, right? The one where the scaffold. We'll talk about that one first. And I want to look at this one a little bit with you. And then we're going to do the web form with a master page from scratch, okay? That's what we're going to do today. So let's get into that Visual Studio 2015, 2013. Hopefully most of you have 2015. If you have 2013, it's okay. There's going to be a few different things that I'm doing with 2013 and 2015. Okay, so I'm starting off a new project here. File, new project. And this is the one where I'm going to use the scaffold. Okay, so I'm going to use the web forms applications. I want to talk about it a little bit. And one of the things I want you to know is this. For your assignment number 1, the scaffold, the web forms template is not allowed. Okay, I'm not allowing the web forms template. I want you to start from scratch. All right? It's going to get you to work on it and try to understand web forms. That's what I'm trying to do. If you just use the scaffold, yes, you can probably get through, but it won't really teach you everything you need to know. All right, so please don't use the scaffold. I will know if you do. Okay, and I'm going to call this thing COMP2007, and it's going to be summer 2016, and it's going to be lesson 2, and we'll say part 1B. Part 1 because I'm going to do part 1, and part 2. Part 2 is actually what I'm going to put up on GitHub. Part 1 is just going to be the scaffold. Okay, one thing to note: if you checked Application Insights, it will mess you up with Microsoft Azure if you only use DreamSpark as your subscription service. If you use pay-as-you-go, you're okay. But click on Application Insights, your application will never run. Okay, please don't do that. Okay, and there's some other things you have to set up on Azure as well on the other side for Applications Insights to work, and it'll just say not deployed, and it'll give you the error of Application Insights, it's not installed, it doesn't work, or something like that. All right, so please don't do that. The other thing is I want you to click Create New Git Repository, even for this one. Even though we're not going to really do anything with Git for this particular application, we're just demonstrating the scaffold. Still, keep that Git, Create New Git Repository checked for now. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to create an extra folder. Next, let's press OK. It's going to take you to this screen. And for 2015, you notice that there's ASP.NET 4.5 templates and ASP.NET 5. We're not going to touch these until the second half of the course. Let's choose web forms this time around as opposed to empty. Okay? Please do not choose host in cloud or add unit tests. We don't want to use those things right now. Okay? We're going to host in cloud later on. Let's notice a couple things here. Look at change authentication. It's actually an option. If I go back to empty, it's grayed out. If I click on web forms, it's there. Why? Because Microsoft ASP.NET Web Forms template, it actually adds that functionality in as part of the scaffold, right? Now, and again, if I'm not asking for that with your portfolio site, and even if you choose none, you have some options: no authentication, individual user accounts, and so on. There's some options here for authentication. If you were to do that, you're going to see there's additional folders and other files that you're going to get. For now, let's just choose individual user accounts. Just leave it as is, as a default, because I want to show you what that looks like. And then press OK. So it's going to generate the scaffold for us. It's going to come up on on Visual Studio, right? And the scaffold is going to generate a whole project structure for you, right? Now, unfortunately, I don't think the machines in front of you in this class have anything on them, right? So some of you may have to just pay attention and watch. So I so apologize for the move. We had a bit of a problem. We could have probably stayed. If that's the case, we probably just could have stayed in that classroom. You wouldn't be able to use the computers anyway. And so they're reimaging. You can't use them. So when you start off this application, it gives you this little intro page that tells you, hey, ASP.NET Web Forms, click this button and so on. We're not going to talk about this. Let's just close this off. On the right, you're going to get your Solution Explorer, and now you can tell there's a ton of stuff it gives you. Here's About page, Contact page, default pages, a global ASAX file, you know, so a couple of master pages, a site master and a mobile master, a bunch of stuff that you don't need for your application that you're going to build for assignment 1. Also, an account folder, you've got a bunch of stuff. Let's run this thing. Let's just run it full blown and see what you get. All right, so I want you to see the output. And also, we're going to build it for the first time. Sometimes, we saw that in the first class, if you don't build your application, sometimes the back end doesn't really function until you build. All right, so I'm building my application here locally. I'm running a local IIS. And eventually, when this thing generates, it's going to bring up my pages. Now, this looks very familiar. In fact, it's Bootstrap, right? Who doesn't know anything about Bootstrap? If you haven't taken COMP2007, you may not know. Do you know Bootstrap? No? Anyone else not know Bootstrap? If you don't know, put up your hand, please, because then we're going to talk about Bootstrap the whole time. So for those people who don't know what Bootstrap is is a front-end CSS framework that we're going to be using in this course. This course is not about CSS or HTML necessarily. We're going to use this front-end framework to make it easier for us to do styling for our web pages, right? And for those people who don't know where that is, and I think there's a couple people in the class and some people from the first class, so I'm recording it for them as well, you can go to getbootstrap.com and to understand how to make this work. If you go to Getting Started, what it does is it talks about how to acquire Bootstrap and how Bootstrap uses, we just use classes that are built into Bootstrap, the Bootstrap library, so that we can style our pages and make them responsive for the responsive web, okay? Now, the great thing about this is, even for this little site that we just kicked off, it's built in. Microsoft has built in Bootstrap. It's the main styling engine, as an example, for web forms and MVC. So we're going to be seeing a lot of Bootstrap over this semester. Okay, let's register. So I'm going to register. You try it out too. I'm going to register my page, if you can try it out. And notice I put in my email. Here's my email. And I'm going to put in whatever password I want, and it's going to fail. Right? I'm going to put in my simple password. I'm going to click register, and it'll fail. It'll say, Matt, password's got to be a certain way. Even here in this example document that it generates, it makes me do strong passwords. And with the identity framework that we're going to be using later on in the course, you're going to see that it's going to give us the same challenge. So let me try and make one. So I'll try and make a regular strength password. So did I type it right? No. The problem with regular strength passwords. They're really powerful. It also supports, MVC also supports with OWEN all kinds of OAuth strategies, for authorizing with use with, things like Twitter, Google+, Facebook, GitHub, all kinds of other stuff. Yeah. I'm going to show you right now. It's a good question. What database is it running off is the question, right? Well, it's a local database, and let me just stop debugging here so I can show you where it is. Notice the, this folder structure, and that there's an app data folder. Remember, we talked about this at the beginning. App data is where all the database files are stored locally, right? So you can't see anything right now, but if you click on this button up here that says Show All Files, you can see that there's a database folder or file right here. And if I pull this over for you, you can see that there's actually an MDF file. That's being saved here locally, and that's what's happening. It's a local database, SQL database that is generated. Okay. Now you can take this database, and you can connect it. You can spin it and connect it on Azure, no problem. It'll run just like this. It won't be a SQL database, but it'll run a SQL server, and it'll point to this file. So there's some issues when we put this up on Azure, right? It may not work the same way as it does here. Just FYI, right? Just from those things. There's some things we need to do in order for us to make this work. That's why I'm saying, please don't use this, as your starting point for your assignment 1. Okay. Let's talk about some stuff that we can look at. We're talking about master pages today, and one of the things I want to look at is the site master page, right? Site master. Now, what master pages are like are templates. So think about them as, if you're coming from COMP2006, think about them as your templating. We did EJS templating with the mean stack, right? Express. We had some templates, and we had something called partial pages, right? It's the same idea here. We have our master page, which gives us some content, right? Shared content that should appear on every page. Like, for example, our Navbar, that should appear on every page, right? And then there's a content placeholder that you're going to see, right, on every page that allows us to customize our content for every content page, right? So notice that we have a Navbar here for our master page. This Navbar, right, is inside this template, right? And we also have something called a content placeholder. Here's a content placeholder server control. And the content placeholder server control, in this particular case, it's called main content. This is where we inject content for each of the pages. So for our default page, that's the space. And if you relate this to something like Angular, right, this would be where your ng view is, right? So you have a template, and everything that gets generated for the template, or is the stuff in the master page. It's it surrounds or boxes your content, and the content is in each of your content pages, and that content gets injected into the space that's inside the template. But we're going to see the order for doing that. It's a little funny, right? Yeah.
With on master page, typically using a real application, most applications you're probably going to have 2 master pages at least.
Yeah.
You're going to have one template for all of the public pages on the site. Then you're probably going to have a simplified master page for the private area of the site. It'll have different navigation, it'll have a different look. And usually the design and the elements of the private master page is going to be a lot simpler.
Yeah.
So almost every .NET site I build is always 2 with the public master and master.
And you can always change that. You can always, so the Rich's comment was there's 2 masters. Usually there's, for people who can't hear Rich on the recording, usually 2 masters. One that's a public master, one that's almost like a mid master. And we use them not only just for mid pages, like things like profile pages, those kind of things, dashboards, with different kinds of navigation, but different options in your navigation, because usually you're logged in, right? So we can hide pieces of the navigation by creating another Navbar altogether, right? And so that option doesn't even exist in a regular master page. That Navbar, the nav option, you can't even get there at all. And we're going to get to that more when we hit security later on in this first half of the semester. So it's really cool. I mean, master pages are templates. Notice that there's a couple of other things. We got some syntax here that you probably haven't seen much before. This less than %, and then some kind of what looks like a class or an object with a property, page.title. We're going to use page.title today. And then %, sign, right? So this syntax is an expression. It's an ASP.NET expression. And this is being used here, just like, very similar again back to EJS, an EJS expression, right? Where we had that's almost the exact same syntax actually, less than %. And then instead of colon, we had equals, right? For EJS, right? And what this means is take the page title information and inject it here. That's what it's doing. It's actually injecting within our HTML code. Now, you have to know that you can't use this syntax outside of a tag that does not include a run at server. Okay, so if it doesn't include this run at server, right? Notice that here, even for this whole form, it's run at server, right? If it doesn't include a run at server, you cannot do that expression. That expression won't function outside of that run at server element. Okay, so the element has to have an attribute run at server for this expression to work. And these expressions come back from classic ASP, right? Before ASP.NET Web Forms, we had this syntax. And you're going to see that in ASP.NET MVC, which we're going to handle the second half of the semester, this syntax is gone. There's no more of this. Right? We use a totally different syntax. We use the at almost like a decorator syntax, which is very similar to the more modern web frameworks that we see today. Okay, so again, if you see what this does, it injects code or functionality between the this syntax, this percent and less than greater than syntax. Okay, and also something else we see in our master page is this idea of this script manager. The script manager that bundles your scripts into one place. We're not going to handle that this time around. And there's a bit of setup to get this working properly. Notice that it's not just the script reference, but there's actually NuGet packages that are being installed here to run the script manager so it functions, okay? And what this is really doing here is it's taking these script references and attaching them to the page as opposed to you physically attaching them manually like I normally do, you know, where you drag and drop. We're going to do the drag and drop thing for now. But can you think of a reason why I would want to bundle it this way? There's actually a really good reason for this. Any kind of, just from intuition, why would you think it's better this way as opposed to me dragging and dropping into my master page? Well, one is security, right? This, you won't see this stuff bundled. When I do a view source, you won't see this stuff at all, right? That's one thing. So from a security perspective, this is all handled on the back end, on the server. So the server bundles everything for you, right? That's one really good reason. Also, it makes bundling, all the requirements you need. Like if you notice here, we have Bootstrap and jQuery and everything else. It bundles everything together nicely, and you don't have to drag and drop anything. You don't have to install any NuGet packages necessarily the way we did before. Different NuGet packages handle that whole thing. So they don't. Right? You're still going to see references to jQuery and Bootstrap, right? But like I said, I don't have to drag and drop them, which we're going to do today. So there's some stuff to learn from this scaffold for sure. Are we going to use this scaffold for the most part in the first part of the course? No. We may, as we approach data, right? We may decide that it's just easier for us to kind of kick off a scaffold like this. And what's and by the way, you can make your own templates, right? This is just one template that we can find when we kick off our application. We can make as many templates of our own as we want that include everything, all the stuff that we want as a kickoff. And this is a great advantage. We talked about this last week. Mean stack, hard, right? Everything is manual. Command line, right? Here, it's a drag and drop environment. 80 million lines of code really helps out. It's a powerhouse, this Visual Studio stuff, right? It makes it easy for us. Sometimes too easy, right? Because it takes away some of that manual control, right? But the great thing is we can build stuff in a rapid application development perspective from that, that mode. And that's what really web forms are all about. Questions around the scaffold, because this is not what we're going to be doing. I'm showing it to you so you understand what all these things do for the most part. We're going to come back to this again. It's not the last time we're going to look at this, but I just wanted to mention that this gives us a lot more information than we need right now. Okay, let's close off this solution, and let's open up our real one that we're going to work with today. All right, and what we're going to do right now before we break is I want to do these steps. I want to create a project, share it on GitHub, deploy it on Azure. All right, those steps again, just like we did before with mean stack. We did the same thing every time for the beginning. Get you guys used to it, right? We're going to do the same thing here. So please do that right now. Create an application, a new one, file, new project. If you don't have access to the Visual Studio in front of you because there isn't anything in front of the computer, please pay attention as much as possible, and I apologize again. We're going to hit ASP.NET Web Application. We're not going to click Application Insights, like I said. We're going to make this, we're going to code it a little bit differently. So we're going to say COMP2007, summer 2016, lesson 2, part 2, and we're going to make it part 2B, right? We're going to click, OK, empty. And we're going to not click anything else. We're not going to click Microsoft Azure here or iDoNetTest or anything else with web forms. And then click OK. So it's going to create an empty solution with just these files. OK, this is cool. I want to create right away my GitHub repository. So I'm going to go kind of into my GitHub here. I'm going to pull that up. So do it with me for those people who can. And I'm going to do it under Georgian. So I have my Georgian College account here. And what we're going to just notice, there's one from part A from this morning. We're just going to do another one with part B. Right, so I'm going to do a new repository. And there's part B. Oh, not part B, part B. And we're going to click Create Repository. Right, so what this is going to do, it's going to create repository. We're going to get this link, and immediately deploy to Azure. Now, this is going to be a problem we're going to see in a second, but I want you to see it. So I'm going to copy the link. I'm going to go to Azure, to Visual Studio, and I'm going to go to Team Explorer. Now, this is going to be different. I'm just warning you, it's going to be different for everybody, right? If I go to Home, and if I go to Changes, you can see that right now I have no changes, right, in my Visual Studio. If you're using Visual Studio 2013, you might see changes in here for the first time, because Visual Studio 2013 and 2015 are slightly different. For 2015, though, there's nothing. I'm going to go Home, and we're going to go to Sync, and notice that there's a few options. Team Services and GitHub, because I installed my GitHub extension. I'm going to choose for 2015 the bottom one, and for Visual Studio 2013, all I want you to care about when you click on Sync Changes is just this yellow search field, which you should still see there, and then paste. Right, there's your URI. If you've set up GitHub before, and it's set up for Visual Studio, which by now it should be if you've done Lab 1, then you should just be able to click Publish, and it's going to go out to GitHub and connect our Visual Studio project with GitHub right now. So GitHub is updated with our latest stuff. And if I refresh, you can see that I do indeed have a solution. But I'm going to have a problem, like I said. I'll say it again so you don't think it's going to be perfect. Let's click on this, and we're going to make a new Azure container. So we're going to say portal.azure.com. And then what we're going to do here is I'm going to create a new web and mobile web app. Okay, so what the web app is just a container that's going to hold all of our site files for our application, our web application. I need to put an original name in there, and my name is going to be COMP2007. It's going to be summer 2016, lesson 2, part 2B. Right, and I'm going to click the resource that I'm going to choose is Canada East, pin to dashboard, and click Create. Now, if I've done it fast enough and you're following along, you shouldn't be able to do what I just did. If you took my name, then it's going to fail my deployment. Why? Because every deployment has to have a unique name. The domain name has to be unique for Azure websites. Right? This is just a refresher, a review of Azure. Right? Now, for people who haven't had COMP2008, do you have access to Azure?
Yes.
Okay, good. Anyone else not have access to Azure? You got to fix that, like I said. So otherwise, you won't be able to do this step at all. Okay? So the way to get Azure access, for those people who don't have it, or for people who are watching it from another section, you have to go to DreamSpark, like I said last week. And under DreamSpark, you're going to go to Students, Software Catalog, and it's going to take you to this view. And I want you to click on Microsoft Azure for DreamSpark, and here you'd sign up. So you kind of put your credentials in here and sign up for Microsoft Azure for DreamSpark. Now, it takes a couple days sometimes for it to work or function properly, and you may have to send them a support request sometimes, because if you're expired or something didn't work properly. But remember that I'm using Microsoft Azure as a cloud service exclusively in this course, so you really need to have it to follow along. It's a requirement. Okay. Now that we have our web container, right, we need to connect it to GitHub, and the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to go down to on the right. I'm going to go down to Publishing. I'm going to click Deployment Source, and from Deployment Source, I'm going to choose, when I configure required settings, GitHub. From GitHub, I'm going to choose under Choose Your Organization, because that's what I have in there. You may not have this because you may not have an organization. I'm going to choose Georgian. And then under that, I'm going to have a project, Choose Your Project, which you will have. And it's probably going to be the top project on the right there. Mine is COMP2007, S2016, lesson. Where is it? Where is it? And this is a problem. This is sometimes what happens, right? Maybe, this is what happens too. Maybe I didn't put it on Georgian College in this particular case. This is bad. Maybe I put it under me, right? And if that's true, where did I put it? It should, maybe I miscoded it. I don't know, because it doesn't appear. Typically, it would appear right here on the top, right? So give it a second, and my project should appear right on the top. So lesson 2, not lesson. Maybe I called it lesson 1. Okay, that's fine. It's lesson 2 actually, but it's coded as lesson 1 part 2B. That's fine. In your case, it'd be lesson 2. I just miscoded it. I apologize for that discombobulation for this morning. I have an excuse for the movements that we've had today at the college. That's my excuse. I'm sticking by it. All right. Anyways, if you look at this, it's doing its deployment dance now. And if you wait, it's not done until I see the check mark, like before, right? If I don't see the check mark, it's not completed. All right. Please don't accept it as being complete. You can see that it's dancing right now. It's spinning. It's transferring the data from GitHub. Until this becomes a check mark, all bets are off. Now I'm telling you, I'm going to tell you right now, this is not going to work. And you're going to say, but Tom, you said last week it worked. Yeah, it did. What am I missing for this page to work properly? Can you see something that I've done? Was that? Nope. It's close though. It's close, but there's something I'm missing. Let me scroll over to here and check this out. So here's my page, COMP2007, S2016, lesson 2, part 2B. And man, it's not working. How come? How come it's not working? Well, let's take a look at my page. I know why it's not working. What do you think is not working? I got nothing. I got no index. I got no default. I got nothing. I talked about this last week. I just created an empty project with nothing in here, right? Now, I'm not going to create a default page. I want to create a master page like we talked about before. This is what the whole gist of this thing is today. So let's make a new master page. How do I do that? I'm going to right-click on my project. And I'm going to go add, and I'm going to go new item, because chances are, unless you have added master pages before, they won't appear here in your quick list, your favorites list, right? You're going to have to click new item. When I choose new item, under web, it may not be immediately apparent where to choose, which template to choose, because I have a lot of templates. Maybe you do too. Type in the word master as a filter. If you do, you're going to see 3 different links or more, right? The one you want is Web Forms master page, this one. It looks like this, Web Forms master page. If you choose something else, it's not the one I'm looking for. These are not the droids you're looking for. All right, this one is though, and I want to name this thing Site Master, just Site Master. Now you could call it, like Rich said, maybe in the future you might call this Public Master, right? But it has to have the master extension on it. Okay, let's click Add. Notice that I got my Site Master page here, and I have a couple things that are a little different than I've seen before. One is, instead of page, the directive says master. That's the first thing. So the directive has master instead of page, master directive. I have C# as a language, auto event wire up is true. Code behind file is the site.master.cs file. My inherits, it looks like COMP2007. And it gives me my my namespace followed by the site for this file. Now here's a problem. I don't like this. Let's get rid of a couple of spaces. So I want to get rid of the space, and I want to get rid of all of this stuff, XML and S, and change it to lang equal to English. So that's not an end, English. Yay. Okay. Also, what's missing is there's no meta tags. Let's add those in to our master page, right? So we want meta tags in each of our pages, right? So we'll say meta. We want to add in character set is equal to UTF-8, right? And the same thing goes with our other meta tag that we always use is the name is equal to viewport and content is equal to, and again, it won't give you this one unless you're in a regular HTML form. It's width is equal to device-width, comma, initial scale, it's equal to 1. There we go. That's the 2 meta tags we're missing. There's other ones you can add in there as well, some description tags and so on for SEO. I'm not going to do that right now. I also want to add in some CSS. Notice that I'm not going to touch the title tag because the title tag, the content of the title tag will be replaced by each of your content pages. So on your content page, it has actually a title attribute inside your directive, and I'll show you that in the content page. So here I'm not going to touch, but below the content, the title, I want to put in some comments that are CSS section. I want to put that in. Right, and what I want to do here is this is a good opportunity for me to drag and get Bootstrap and Font Awesome and all that stuff going. So let's do this now. So I've pinned my Solution Explorer. I want to right-click on my solution here, right? And I'm going to go to Manage NuGet Packages for Solution. I got to do that first. Now, if you're using 2015, you're going to see this view, right? If you're seeing 2013, it's going to be slightly different than this. You're going to, instead of browse, like I'm going to hit, you're going to hit online. There's going to be a section, a link that says online. I want you to click on that online link. And I want you to choose Bootstrap. That's the first thing I want you to do. Click. And in 2015, I'm going to choose my project and click Install. For you, if you're using 2015, you're just going to click the Install button. Okay, so I'm just installing this thing. Here it is. Bootstrap is installed. Like last time, it was pretty quick. Let's also install Font Awesome in the same way. So here's Font Awesome. Last week, I told you to use 4.6.1. There's been a release lately that you can use 4.6.3. That's the one I want you to use. All right, and it says NuGet package only on it. So use that and install. So Font Awesome now, and I've also got Bootstrap. That's all installed. Okay, for 2015 only, I want you to go to Updates, right? And I want you to clear this filter. And then what I want you to do here is update everything. What this is going to do, it's going to pull the latest version of jQuery from 1.9.1 to 2.2.3. It's going to get the latest version of jQuery and the latest version of the other packages that are installed in the file for ultimate or compatibility. We don't want to have any issues with these. Okay, cool. So now that we've got those, we can close off the NuGet Solution Manager. The NuGet Manager, we can close off this window. And notice that I've got almost my structure that I want. I've got my content with Bootstrap and Font Awesome. I've got my scripts with Bootstrap and jQuery. And now the only thing I'm missing here is my assets folder, which I'm going to add in. So I'm kind of preparing you for your assignment number 1. This is almost how I would do assignment number 1. So I'm going to right-click on my project. I'm going to add a folder. I'm going to put in assets. There you go. So assets is now included as a folder. We don't have anything in there right now, but we will. Okay, so now that we have our CSS and our content, let's drag and drop it in the CSS section, just like we did last week. Remember, I told you this is not the first time or last time we're going to do this. So I'm going to go into bootstrap.min.css here in the content folder. I'm going to drag and drop this underneath the CSS section. I'm going to do the same thing for my bootstrap-theme.min.css. And my Font Awesome. We should make this a little smaller for us to see. There we go. And here's my Font Awesome.min.css. Do that as well. Just drag and drop it in. There we go. So we've got Bootstrap and Font Awesome. And you know what? We don't have one of our own. Maybe we want to add our own custom CSS. So I'm going to right-click on Content here. I'm going to click Add, and then I'm going to click in Style Sheet. And we're going to add a CSS style sheet called app.css. Here it is. And we're just going to recode this one with some comment that says, you know, your CSS, custom CSS lives here. You know, kind of that's where it lives. We don't have any yet, but we might have some later on. And so our CSS section is done. Let's do the same thing for our script section. And again, this is following regular conventions. We're going to put our scripts before our body tag, the closing body tag here. So we're going to put a JavaScript section. Remember, primarily we're going to be using C# for this course. That doesn't mean we can't use JavaScript for some kind of event handling or other special effects that we can't do with ASP.NET, or it's not made to do. Like things like transitions and transforms and stuff like that, only with JavaScript. And somehow, if you don't want to use CSS, because CSS can do it most of it anyway. Okay, so let's do this. So scripts, I'm going to drag in jQuery first, jQuery.min.js. And then I'm going to drag in bootstrap.min.js. And you know what? I don't have a custom script for me, just in case I want to have some custom JavaScript. So I'm going to right-click on scripts. I'm going to go add, and then I'm going to click on JavaScript file. And I'm going to call this app.js. And app.js, put a little comment at the top that says, custom JavaScript. It's here. which we don't have any for it right now. But if there's a file there, just in case we want to add anything in. Okay, cool. So we've got our, our jQuery and our Bootstrap. Let's drag and drop our app.js. There we go. So we've got a good complement of everything we need here. Okay. One of the things I talked about last week was some really cool extensions and plugins for Visual Studio 2013 and 2015. And one of them is the Bootstrap Snippet Pack. The Bootstrap Snippet Pack, okay? So how do I get that? I go to Tools. This is an extension that I recommend. It's going to make your life easier. You're going to go Extensions and Updates. And you're going to download and install the Bootstrap Snippet Pack. And you're going to find that under Online. So online, you're going to kind of search for it. And then one of the ones you're going to find is this Bootstrap Snippet Pack, which is what you want to install. Mine's already been installed, and it adds some snippets to make our life with Bootstrap a little easier. So instead of me typing all Bootstrap classes and everything else, I can have one little code snippet, just like we did with Emmet, and then all of a sudden, boom, it adds everything in there. So we never have to go to the Bootstrap site to do all that stuff, to copy and paste. It's already included for us. Let me demonstrate this for you. So I want to add in above the form tag for now. Here's above the form tag. I want to add in a navbar. All right. So here's how simple it is to use the Bootstrap Snippet Pack to add a navbar. I'm going to type in BS. It stands for Bootstrap, by the way. No, not other kind of BS. Right? Dash, right? Navbar. Right. And if you've got the Bootstrap Snippet Pack, you press Tab, and then I get all this. Like, bam, you've got a navbar, right? Tools, extensions, and updates. And you can find Bootstrap Snippet Pack in there. Okay, and I have other ones like I talked about before. The other really big one that I talked about is, which I highly recommend, I don't know how you guys live without it, is VS Web Essentials. Web Essentials for Visual Studio 2015 Update 2. If you don't have this, you won't have shortcuts like Zen Coding, which are similar to Emmet that we did last semester, shortcuts for HTML. So we don't have to type in all the HTML. It's already done for us. All right, so we got this navbar. That's cool, but there's too much of it. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to get rid of some stuff. Well, first of all, our brand, I'm just going to call this ASP.NET, right? And then under where it says collapse navbar collapse, there's going to be a UL. I want you to get rid of the unordered list and the form that follows it. So all the way down to here, right? The unordered list and the form that follows it, I want you to get rid of it all. Press delete. Okay, cool. Now we're left with another unordered list with a drop-down, a list item with a drop-down class. Get rid of that too, the list item with the drop-down class. So now all you're left with is an unordered list. Get rid of the space here for a second, just to clean up. Here's my navbar so far. I have my unordered list with one list item, right? Let's copy this list item. But before, to be smart, let's do one really good list item and then copy that a bunch of times, okay? So I'm going to click on link and make this home. And you know what? I'm going to use Font Awesome. So let's add Font Awesome into our file. So I'm going to say we need the I tag, dot, which means class, right? Font Awesome, dot, Font Awesome dash home. This is the class for the icon, for the font, for the home icon, dot, Font Awesome dash large size. So a large size font, that's the home icon. And let's just press tab, and then it gives us that's the shorthand, right? I'll show you that one more time. So undo. So this is the actual code for it. And all I have to do is, if you have Visual Studio Web Essentials installed, all I have to do is press tab, and it'll give you the complete form. Press tab, and there it is, right? I want to move this I tag. I want to cut it and remove it right next to our list item on the top here. And then I want to get rid of all the spacing except for one space next to the home button, or the home link, to give some separation between the icon, which is that's what the I stands for, and the text. So that's the home button is done, or the home link is done, right? I'm also going to code this so that the link for it is called default.aspx. We're going to change this. We're going to add some other things to the LI as well. But let's just do for now. I'm going to copy this whole thing. So copy, and I'm going to paste it 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So four times I'm pasting this thing. Why? Because now I'm going to change these to say something else. So for the second link, it's going to be products. You know where I'm going, right? This next one is going to be services. And then this one is going to be about us. And then contact us. Stuff you have never, it's not like you've never seen this stuff before. And for the links, default, this is going to be products. We don't have those yet, but we will. Services, we don't even have the default ASPX, right? We're going to make that in a second too. About and contact. So those are the links. And then for here, for the icons, those are all going to be different. For the second icon for products, we're going to choose TH, which means it's going to be like this, this grid. That's what it's going to give us. That's the icon. For the services, we're going to make the gear. It's going to look like a gear. You can choose whatever you want. And about us is going to be info, the little I. And then for the contact us page, we're going to use the phone. Now you can use, for your page, I'm hoping that you're going to use your own custom icons from, or whatever you can choose from Font Awesome or another service. See? All right, great. So I've got my bar, and notice that I put it outside of my form. And we have our content placeholder, but we've got a really ugly ID here, content placeholder 1. That doesn't mean anything. Let's change the content placeholder that we have underneath our form to say main content. That makes more sense, right? So this is our main content. This is where we're going to put all of our content in each of our content pages, right? Main content. Now I have two content placeholders, right, in our master page. One that's between the form tag within a div tag, and I can code the div tag later if I want. And I have one inside the head of my document. I have one here because if I want to add additional CSS or some other kind of meta tags related to that particular page, I can do so. And it's going to be OK. That's where I would inject that information. So instead of having to do it here in the master page for all pages, I could do it page specific. So that's one. And then I have this one for the content. This is where all the actual content is going to go. OK, so two content placeholder server controls. That's what those things are. Now I can't run these things unless I have run at server attached to a particular element, right? In this case, run at server runs on the form. And for the head, run at server is also on the head tag, right? So those two things exist. If you don't have run at server, you can't do server controls. Questions before we stop here for our site master. Our site master now is fairly complete. There's some few changes, modifications we have to make, but it includes a navbar, includes some content placeholder server controls, and we're ready to go as for our template as we go forward. One thing I want to change that I forgot is navbar default. I want to make this navbar inverse, right? Because I want our navbar to be black. You can make it whatever color you like, and you can get some customized Bootstrap stuff to do that. Want to save? You can also do it in CSS. Okay, so now that I've got that, I've got this work. This is a great place to upload to GitHub. And remember, I have a GitHub repository you can look up. So I'm going to go to my Solution Explorer, pin this, hit Team Explorer now, and you can see that I want to go to Changes. Now, in Visual Studio 2015, it's going to look like this, right? And GitHub is our version control system that we're using. Notice that here I have the plus. What this is going to do is actually going to put this in the staging area. One thing we didn't talk about on GitHub for when we were doing the mean stack is we always did like a local repository and the remote. But actually, there's a middle stage called the staging area. It's a three-stage system, right? We have our local files and folders, our staging area, and then our hidden .git folder, right? That's where all our local repository is stored. So what I'm really doing is doing this. I'm saying whenever I go here and I click plus, the actual command that I'm running on the terminal will be equivalent to git add dot. That's what I do when I click the plus. Click this plus, I've staged everything. I got to save everything. But then now it's all staged. Okay. However, I can't commit it into the repository without creating a friendly name for the snapshot. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to say added site.master. That's the master page we just added in. I'm going to click commit staged. When I click commit stage, it's like saying git commit space -m, and when the friendly message is going to say the same thing, added site.master, right? Now we haven't uploaded it, again, we haven't pushed this to the remote. We're going to go to home again, and we're going to click on sync, in your case, unsync changes is what you're going to see if you're Visual Studio 2013. And then I'm going to click push or sync, one of the two. Both will work. I'll push it, and all of my changes are pushed to the remote. Now, if I want to look at the remote, here's the remote. Of course, I named it wrong. Refresh. And here it is. You can see that it's pushed. See that added site master is there for part 2B. Okay. Things to note. This still won't work properly in Azure. Why? We still don't have a default page, right? All we've done is we've done some preparation and prepared a site master. That's all we've done. We need to add our first content page. So let's do that and then take a short break for smokes and bio breaks and contacting your girlfriend, boyfriend, maybe getting something to eat, I don't know, coffee. So those are the things we're going to do. So how do we do that? We've done our content, our site master, so we're going to add our content page. And I'm going to do it the hard way first. I'm always going to try and teach you the hard way, and then we'll do it the easy way. So if you know the hard way, then you know how to get out of problems. If you run into a problem, you know how to fix it. If I show you the easy way, then you're going to have a lot of questions. Tom, how do I get out of this mess, right? Put ourselves into a mess is what I'm saying. Here's how I do it. I'm going to right-click onto Site Master. This is the hard way, right? And then I'm going to add content page. Right? Now what it's going to do, it's going to create a content page called Web Form 1. I need to rename this because Web Form 1, it's not default or index or anything else that matches what we need. Right-click here, and I'm going to rename this thing to default, the capital D. And that's the first change we need to make. Okay, here's the second change we need to make. Notice over here, right, that, my friends, I'm inheriting from a class of Web Form 1. Well, Web Form 1 is what this thing was originally called, and that doesn't make any sense. We need to fix that too. And we're not going to do it here in the directive. We're going to do it when I go back to my default file under the code behind file, default.aspx.cs, double click. And in here, you can see that the page itself, the class, is called Web Form 1. I want to kind of double click this class. I want to right click. And now I want to rename this one. So rename. And we're going to call this thing, sorry, you can't see what I'm renaming, but I want to rename it to, see if I can do that again. Rename. Sorry, it's just blocked because how big it is. I want to rename this thing to default. All related files, which means even my default.aspx is going to be updated with the new class name, right? Why? Because when I make a new form, typically default is the class of what the form is called. The form class has to match typically what the form is called. That's the convention, all right? So I have to fix that. Let's check that out. So if I go back to default.aspx, because I have it open, it should say now, instead of inherits from Web Form 1, it should say default, right? So that's all fixed up. You need to do it this particular way. Okay, cool. We've got our default web form. Now, here's another thing we need to do. We need to tell the project, because we never had any kind of content page before. We need to tell the project what's the starting page for our project. So we have to right-click on default.aspx, and we're going to set a starting page. By the way, you can set any page to a starting page. This will change what the server is looking for. So it actually changes. You can make any page. You can say hello world ASPX, and it'll work now because I've set this to starting page, right? I'm overriding the defaults, and I'm doing it explicitly so that there's no guesswork. I know for sure this isn't the issue if I have a problem, okay? Next, I don't need, in this particular case, the head placeholder, content placeholder, because I'm not going to make any change to the head. Let's get rid of this. And I want to put in some default copy inside this area right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a div tag with a class of container, which is a CSS class from Bootstrap, and greater than sign means, and it's going to contain an H1 tag with some content that says home page, right? And then press tab. It's going to do this. If you've got Visual Studio Web Essentials, you'll get this. Notice also we have on the page directive, we have a couple of new attributes. One of them is title. I want you to change this title attribute to home page. And also, we also have a master page file attribute, which points to the master, the site master we created. All right, this is very important to understand, because if you don't have this, then we don't know what our site master is. Our content page will have nothing on it, right? So this just generated automatically when we made a content page from our master. Okay, cool. Let's test this page out. This is our first page, man. This is our first default page. So let's run it. We'll do Control F5 to run without debugging. We don't need debugging right now, right? And if we run without debugging, we get, let's see what we get. Homepage, right? This is what we got. So we got like a nice little, layout or whatever. But unfortunately, none of these work except for this one. This works because we have a default .aspx page. But this one is going to give us an error, right? Because we don't have those pages in place yet. So we're going to create those pages after the break. But for now, what I want to do is I want to go and update my GitHub. So I'm going to go to Team Explorer, Home, Changes. I'm going to add the changes to the staging area and create a friendly commit. So added default.aspx content page. That's what I did. Click commit staged, right? Go home, click on sync, and then click push. Now this is going to push everything to Azure as well. Let's take a look at Azure, what's happening here. It's going to do its deployment dance again, right? So here's the first one, first commit. Here's the second commit. We added our site master. Now we got to wait for our third commit, and we're waiting for our content page to be added into our workflow, right? So when this is done, we get a check mark, then we should have a successful home page. Okay, it looks like it worked. Let's go over here and check it out. So I'm going to press on this again. We're going to generate this page again, COMP2007, S2016, Lesson 2, Part 2B, .azurewebsites.net. It's a big, long file, right? Let's take a look. By the way, it's always good to code your files or your website specifically like this, because if in a real-life example, we would just point another custom domain to this. This wouldn't change. This is internal. This is a private, AzureWebsites.net is a private domain that you're only able to use from a staging area perspective. Works, right? So, like I said before, to recap before we break, whenever we create a site, we need some kind of start page, right? Default.aspx, if we start off an application, we set up a default page, it starts off as our start page. Our masters, our master pages, what they are, they act as templates for us, so we have the same look and feel for all of the entire application, just like any other templating engine, right? There is no other special name for this templating engine. The templating engine name for MVC is Razor. We're going to use the Razor templating engine when we get into MVC 5. For now, there is no name. It's just called Web Forms pages, and this is the way we do. We set up a master page. With a master page alone doesn't do anything. We need content pages. And we set up our first content page here, the default.aspx content page. When we come back from break, we'll do the other ones: products, services, about us, contact us, and we'll also talk about some issues that we have already. There's some issues here that you can't see that we're going to talk about and how to solve the issue. Okay, so let's go on break. Come back in about 10 minutes, and we'll continue with content pages.